Hello everybody, I'm Diana Henry from the Telegraph. I'm one of the food writers there. This is the last session of today's Food and Drink Festival, and we're going to be talking to Stephen Harris, who is Michelin-starred from the Sportsman in Kent, and also another writer for the Telegraph. We've known each other for a very long time, so this will be an interesting conversation. Stephen is going to tell us, hopefully, how to make a Michelin-starred dish. And I'm still interested always to talk about what the difference is between home cooking, I'm a home cook, and restaurant cooking, which is what Stephen does. Stephen, what are you going to cook for us?
Hello, everyone. I'm going to do, well, I was going to do lemon sole with a mussel tartar, but I'm not now. I'm going to do Brill because I couldn't get lemon sole. So I couldn't get the kind of lemon sole that I needed, which was quite a big one. So, but if anyone is cooking along, and I believe some people do, the lemon sole will still be fine, but your fish will take about 3 minutes to cook, whereas mine will take 5, 6, 7, something like that.
Is that the only difference that you have to make? Because the Brill, just longer cooking time.
Yes, the amount of time that the fish cooks. Yeah, that's right. Yes, so I'm
what's
ready.
Mussel tartar? I want to.
It's a joke. It's a joke. Like in the same way as you get jokes in opera and Shakespeare, where clever people laugh very loudly. All the clever people have already laughed at the joke because it's a joke on tartar, meaning chopped up raw meat, and tartar, which is I think is in Escoffier's, that book that tells everyone everything. Tartar means an accompaniment of gherkin, caper, and shallot. So it means both. But tartar, the chopped up raw meat, is with an E on the end, and tartar is the other one. So it's a hilarious culinary.
You're too clever for me. That passed me by entirely.
I know.
I thought you were going to have raw mussels, and I thought, oh
I'm
my God. Can you just tell me what you were a home cook, and you basically taught yourself.
Yes.
And became a Michelin-starred chef over years, and you've held that now for 12 years, which I didn't know till today, which is incredible. But what made you want to do it? Because it's not just cooking; it's a particular kind of cooking. I mean, it's high-level cooking. It's fine dining, if you like. So, and you're not, I've known you for a long time, and you're not you're not an overly what shall I say, kind of formal person.
Yeah.
Not the kind of cooking I would have thought you'd go for. So what happened?
I think it was going out in London in the early 90s. I didn't realise then, but it was a real special time. You had Marco Pierre White, Nico, Pierre Kaufman, the Roux brothers, and between them they had 5 restaurants which all had 3 Michelin stars, either around at the same time or maybe a year apart. So London, that was kind of the London dining scene that I was going out in, and I would go. It was when I worked in the city, and we'd go on a Friday at the end of the month when the books closed. At the end of the month, if you'd had a good month, you'd go somewhere, and that's where I first went to Nico's. And I was already a really good amateur keen cook. This was back in the 80s, and I was quite into Chinese food, and I'd make my own pizzas for my mates when they came around to watch football. And so I was always I was really into food, and I was really into cooking. And of course it wasn't such a thing then. Food and cooking wasn't as a bigger part of the culture as it is now. And so the two kind of came together. I went to these amazing restaurants. I mean, like over and over again. I went to Marco Pierre White's about 15 times, and I've still got all the receipts, and I'd write my little reviews on the back of the receipts. And it was just how amazing the food was. But it didn't seem poncy. It was very robust, particularly Marco's food. Nico's was a little bit more refined, but they were all very, really good kind of rustic. It didn't feel. You'd have things like beef bourguignon and dishes like that, and
just done a bit more refinedly, but exactly some kind of level of flavour.
Yeah, and the pig's trotter stuffed with morels and sweetbreads and all that. It wasn't too poncy. I could see in the food that I was eating there, even back then, I thought, God, it'd be great to do this in a pub or a relaxed environment and just take away all of the frippery and
just have the food.
Just serve the meat, the sauce, a vegetable and a potato, and that's it, you know. So that was kind of where it came from. And then when I decided that I was going to do the plunge and become a chef, I didn't know really where it was going to end, whether it might end up with me just cooking quite nice food in a pub. But I don't know. Funny things happen when you work really hard at something, kind of magic starts happening, and things like you start doing it, you think, God, and people are like, this is really good. It's not just, we're not just saying it. And people would eat my food and say, no, this is like the best food I've ever eaten. And so I started thinking, oh, right, well, maybe I have got a bit of a knack for it. And that just didn't look back, really.
It's great when you hear that somebody starts something and they don't have a particular plan, but it all comes together and it keeps growing. Anyway, yeah. Show us the dish that you're going to do today.
Right. Okay. So, do you want me to start? Hang on.
You start cooking.
Yeah.
And whoever's at home can start cooking as well as they're cooking along.
Right now, this is the Brill. So I've got Brill, which instead of lemon salt, it's a bit thicker, but it'll be fine. And then I've got a mussels, which I will show you here. So these are the mussels, just normal rope-grown mussels, nothing special. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook the fish, but I'm going to make a sauce using the mussels. So it's a bit like, imagine if you fuse together like more mariniere along with a bit of with a bit of fish. So it's a kind of bit of both. So mussels going in there, it's about half a pint there. And I'm just going to cook those in some wine. Very good wine, I should say. It's just I opened one that we've already had a glass from. I hope it doesn't show too much. So I'm just gonna skin this fish. I filleted it earlier because I bottled out because I don't do fish every day like I used to, so I'm not as good as I used to be. But actually, I found out I haven't lost it. So that's the fish skinned. I'm just going to take the edge off, and there we've got. I'm going to do 2 portions. So that's the 2 fish portions. And you were saying, weren't you, about what's the difference between kind of Michelin-star food and home cooking? And the big difference really is that with Michelin-starred food, it's consistent. I think consistency is important, and it's slightly refined as well. But actually, what I want in a Michelin-starred restaurant is a few wow moments in my dinner. So I want them to be wowed. If I'm spending a lot of money, then I want some kind of, I want that kind of like you put something in your mouth and you look at the person you're with, and
that's what you do go out for, because you can make pretty good food at home if you're a cook.
Exactly. And so that's really, you want something a bit different. I'm just now going to do the tartar with no E, hilariously.
So that's a lot.
Right. So chive. Shallot here and chives over there. I'll just put all this in this.
It's always easier to make a very impressive fish dish, I think, if you use mussels, because you can make stock from that. So
you've got an instant stock, exactly.
Without spending loads of money and spending hours kind of like making fish stock, you've got that there. But it can be salty, can't it, Stephen? Don't you have to?
I don't add any salt, probably. That would be the answer. I might add salt to the fish, but I don't think I add any salt to the sauce. I mean, I'll try it at the end, and I'll add salt if I have to. But the saltiness comes from the seawater.
And the wine to a certain extent, a little bit, yeah?
Yes. Particularly this type of wine, which is a Macon, which that is, like Chablis. Those are the mussels. You see, they're opening now. So I'm just going to.
So you're not covering those? I always cook mine with a lid.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can. There you go. Doesn't
Now
matter too
listen,
much.
at the Sportsman, you don't just do this kind of
Yes.
dish. You also have dishes. You have, roast pork on and roast chicken and things like that. So you
Yes,
sort of
yes.
run two
Yes.
places at once in a way. You have the refined food, and then you have more what I would consider, very elevated, obviously, but very elevated home cooking.
Yes,
Why
yes.
do you keep both?
Yeah. Well, I did. It's been a bit tricky since lockdown because we can only do one menu because everyone, for loads of reasons. So I've slightly changed that, but because I love it. I love, my favourite dish we do is pork belly, mashed potato and cabbage. And that's the best dish that we do.
And that's been since the beginning, hasn't it?
I genuinely don't, and I genuinely don't think it can be bettered. Like what's better than that? Is it, poncing everything up, serving pork with langoustine? I love pork with langoustine, but, when done by somebody good like Adam Byers or someone. But otherwise, anyway, before I forget, I'm just going to put the fish in the oven. So, I'm going to do it with olive oil, actually. You can do this with butter. The only reason I say that is because I'm going to do butter with the cabbage, so a bit of variety. Now, I've got 2 bits of the fish. They're just, this is my seasoning. Can you see? So a lot of home people will say, oh, that's a lot of salt. I've never used that much. Well, then you won't cook this standard of food.
It is all in the seasoning, isn't it? I think that's make more than anything else. But seasoning and not being scared of butter, actually.
Yeah, well, I've been into butter making it for 15, 20 years. So you come from Ireland, and everyone I know from Ireland.
Yeah, there's no contest if you had to make me choose between butter and olive oil.
No, in the Sportsman, we had that period where people were literally scared of butter, and I was out on a limb
because of health.
Now everyone's. Yes, there was a lot of that.
Yeah, I think it's come back the other way a bit, but not completely, probably. If people saw how much butter was in their Michelin-star meal, I don't think it happens very often.
Well, yes, often shocking amounts, but we try not to do that. Now, what I'm doing now, I've just put the fish in the oven. If you're cooking with lemon sole, it will cook in 2 minutes. So, because also it will carry on cooking when you take it out of the oven. Just because you take something out of the oven doesn't mean
there's always
that
residual heat.
Yes, the residual heat. It's the most important thing to learn, really, about cooking, particularly fish and meat, because it's a bit like, look, if you're driving a car and I tell you to stop at that post box there, because you will slow your car down and gently stop at the post box. You don't drive right up to it and screech the tyres and stop at this point. You gradually reduce the amount of energy you put in the car, and that's what's happening with cooking. It's all about the amount of energy you're putting into the fish, and that's what the oven is. So when you take it out of the oven, it's like putting your foot on the brake or taking your foot off the accelerator. You are just reducing the amount of energy you're putting into the dish. If that sounds too
No, it's the same. I've just been writing about custards and tarts, like quiches, and it's very much an important part of them as well.
It is, and that's why sometimes having a block of ice or an ice bowl, to stop cooking straight away is very important. Did you know that yellow mussels are male, is it? And
I did not know that
white
at all.
ones are female, or is it? Yeah. So that nice orange one there, look. There's a nice orange one there.
Beautiful.
And there's a white one.
I don't think I've ever seen such a difference actually in one load of mussels. Yeah. So when you started, because you taught yourself how to cook to this standard, when you decided you were going to try them, how did you work through it? Did you have a plan? Were there particular books that you bought and you cooked your way through them, or how did you approach it?
Yeah, I did kind of have a plan. When I look back on it, I wanted to be a chef, but I was 33 and I felt like a lot of people thought, well, you're too old.
Physical,
which I It is very physical, but I was very fit back then. I'm not so now, but I was very fit. So the physical side of it I could cope with. And I just kind of went and worked in some friends' restaurants. And so I worked in a Mexican restaurant. I worked in a fish restaurant in Whitstable. And then I kind of just found my feet. But when I first got the Sportsman, I knew what I wanted to serve. And if I could pull it off, I knew it was going to be pretty spectacular. But you know, being able to cook is only one aspect. You know, you've got to be able to run a kitchen. You've got to be able to motivate people and, you know, get people to work for you. All the things that, you know, are important in any walk of life. You know, why should somebody come and work for you?
You've not run a very big kitchen, though. Yours has always been fairly limited in the amount of people.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 6 now. 6 of us in there. 6 chefs on service. So
is that the hardest part? Keeping them, well, teaching them and also keeping them enthusiastic?
Yeah, I think you've always got to be on a bit of a mission. You know, if they don't feel like they're on a mission, then that's when inertia can set in. So I'm quite keen to make it always feel like we're moving forward. And actually, the way it worked out perfectly, because we opened in 99, 2002. I think it was Joe Rayner came and reviewed us. Then
Leah Palmer from the Telegraph.
She came and you know, kind of really wrote a great review of us, and then not much happened. Then we got our Michelin-star, and there was a big burst of, and then the weirdest thing that happened was we became this kind of internet cult restaurant for people around the world.
How did they find out about it?
Blogs. In the early days of food bloggers, there were these people that were going around the world eating in extraordinary restaurants, and we were regarded as one of them. And so we ended up as, you know, kind of probably one of the best known restaurants in Britain, maybe behind Fat Duck and St John, but probably third behind that, which I'm not saying we deserve to be, but that was how it ended up. And yeah, and so we became this kind of internet thing where, so, you know, we'd have all the world's best chefs coming, you know, and René Redzepi had his celebration for winning the world's top 50 at the Sportsman, and invited, you know, Massimo Bottura, Magnus Nielsen, David Chow, Daniel Pum, you know.
I mean, you must have been under constant pressure, or did you not feel it?
I rationalised it. I felt it building up, but I suddenly thought, no, hang on. René's doing this because he'd been already and he loves it. So just serve what, you know. It's a golden rule with chefs. All chefs want to show you their latest little invention, and they've got no context. What you have to understand is the reason people have come is because of what you've done. And of course, you've got your own little pilot project or something, but just serve what you know.
There's a question for you from someone cooking a lot. Did you add butter to the mussels? Okay.
Not yet. I'm going to add a bit, which I think might be going a bit off-piste. So apologies to Amy, who told me to cook exactly as it is, but I can't help doing that. Now, I'm just going to do some cabbage with it, just so that we got something to kind of rest something to balance the dish. So I'm just going to
that's going to be an integral part of the dish. Is that something that's kind of a Michelin thing, that you serve the dish as a whole rather than having all these little side vegetables?
Yes, you have a focus. You have a kind of, it's slightly dated now. People are trying to move away from it. But actually, I don't think anyone's come up with anything better. So you have a kind of a protein, for want of a better word, focus for your dish. I'm just going to get a pan for this. Now, I'm just going to just check the fish in the oven. Won't be a sec. It's over here.
How long is that? 5, did you say? 5 minutes?
Yeah,
I think you said that. Well, that looks perfect.
It is perfect, but it's slightly too far, I've taken it, slightly, because it's going to carry on cooking, as I pointed out before. So there's to a certain extent, I've slightly overdone it. I'm just going to season with a bit of lemon.
Why would you do that?
Sort of
Why did you choose to do that in the oven, Stephen, rather than do it on the hob? Right.
Because I wrote the recipe up in the oven, so that was one reason. But also because I think it's if you do it in a pan, you can end up browning the fish, and I wanted the fish to stay quite light in colour, which I think it has. But yeah, there's no. I mean, I could just as easily another day do it in a pan.
I think oven's the really easiest way to cook fish, though. I do it all the time.
Yeah, I know, and I think there's something, you know.
But you put it in there and you can
I
forget
agree.
about it. You just have to keep an eye on the time.
Well, that's the thing. I think timing. The other thing, there is a school of thought that the oven dries things out. That can be
Because
a
it's
problem with ovens, that it does. Well, no, but only if you're roasting meat for a long time. So there are chefs who only cook on the heat, you know. So I'm just cooking this cabbage. I'll just let you know. This is. I'm just doing it on the top here, and I'm just going to wilt this cabbage until so there's still a bit of crunch left, but not too much. I don't like chewing through raw veg, but I'm just going to cook that in. I've got a tiny bit of water there, a tiny bit of a pinch of salt, not too much, a pinch of salt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook that, and then let the water evaporate almost completely, which it already has. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more. Right, I'm cooking that in some water, and in a minute, when I feel it's done, so I have to taste it basically. I'll add a knob of butter and some lemon and some black pepper. That's going to be the kind of.
Someone just asked, who is your favourite chef? Which I'd love to know the answer to that as well, actually.
Alan Passard.
Really? Alan Passard, who's in Paris?
He's the French chef who gave up cooking meat around the time of BSE. He got so fed up with it, so he was known as the greatest rôtissier in France. So he was the best meat cook in France. He gave it up to just cook vegetables, bought 3 farms eventually, and he serves the most amazing food, which is nearly all vegetarian. And I'm not anti-vegetarian, but I'm not a big, I'm not a veggie at all. And I find it quite hard to cook for vegetarians in restaurants. But this is black pepper going in there. But yeah, so Alan Passard. I also love Pascal Barbeau, who's another Paris 3-star, well, it's 2 now, but 3-star chef. And I like, in England, Heston's a big hero of mine. I mean, whatever, people say about molecular gastronomy, I love it. Anyway, I'm now going to make the sauce. So I have taken the mussels off the shell, can you see? Now I'm going to put some of the liquor in, not all of it.
Yeah, have you tasted that?
Right.
Have you tasted that, Stephen? I couldn't.
Yes,
I just missed that bit. And that's what you have to do all the time.
Sorry.
Taste.
Yeah, I think so. Right, the cabbage is nearly done. It's there's still a bit of water in it. I'm going to cook, and this is where you can hear it. I'm going to cook until I can hear it almost frying, and it will change noise, and that's a cue to tell you to change it's basically frying in the butter rather than there's not.
It's funny you should say that, because in my house these days we've all got our headphones on all the time. So I cook music. The boys have their headphones on as well. And I noticed that you can't cook very well if you can't hear. You need to be able to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. You wouldn't. It's like when I see people on cyclists with headphones on. I was thinking, oh my God,
you're missing a sense completely.
Exactly, and I think it's really dangerous. But yeah, I agree with it. With cooking, I wouldn't do anything. I mean, I don't often have music on, although I used to in the old days, and I loved it. but
You like columnist now?
anyway. So I'm just going to point out where we're up to. I've got cabbage cooking away. It's nice already, but I'll let it soften a bit. I've got some mussels in there with the juice of the. They were just cooked in a splash of wine, and that's just heating up. Now, I've got the. This is the mix, the hilarious tartar mix. So that is known in French as a garnish, which is a word I particularly hate, and it's capers, gherkins, shallot, and chives. Okay, now you can see how much there is there. It's probably about a mixture, about 3 or 4 tablespoons of it. Okay, and I'll take that off the heat. Cabbage is cooked. Sauce is nearly there. It's coming together very quick, this dish. So I'm going to put, if you want to know the difference between Michelin-star and cooking at home, I'm going to put a big wedge of butter. Yeah, because it really does. But I'll tell you, there's a reason for it. It really brings out all the flavours. Fat, it's like fat is a delivery system. It delivers flavour all around your mouth, and it does it brilliantly.
That's quite a salty mixture, actually. So you do need something to soften all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Why butter rather than cream, though?
Well, you could do moule à la crème. I mean, remember the principle is that this is just mussels, like a moule marinière, but served with fish. So
I have to say, it's very easy, this dish.
It is very easy, yeah. They chose it, I think, because it's easy. So I'm just finishing the cabbage, which is slightly coloured, which I didn't really.
I'll forgive you.
Oh, tastes good, but needs a bit more salt. Pinch. Okay, where's the sauce way? Now, so I have my cabbage. This is also very chefy. You have everything ready. So I have the cabbage, I have the fish, okay, and I have the sauce. So, and the sauce.
I think that's partly one of the things that's hard for home cooks, actually, is having that space as well and doing the mise en place and setting everything out, because it's not very conducive, the
No, it's not. To be honest, I cook differently at home. Very differently.
Dishes or just a different approach?
Yeah, like I'll roast the whole thing, or I've got that out of my system now. And I love cooking at home, so I just cook differently. Right. So I'm now going to plate up, which is, again, there's a word for that kind of a verb, isn't there?
This is what does make a huge difference, I think. So
yeah,
home food and Michelin food.
yeah, it is the difference. Okay, I'm tasting all this as I go.
Because that's the other really important thing in any cooking. Taste it right till the end.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it does mean you're bored by the time you come to eat. That's the only.
I don't love eating my own food. Actually, I like giving it to other people, but you are bored
exactly.
Dished it up.
It's the always in the kitchen at parties people.
So that's some of the extra juices from the fish just going on top of the fillet.
I don't waste anything. I hate it. If I'm in the kitchen and there's a pan, I always taste what's in it and say, well, why isn't that on the plate? You don't want to leave all the good taste in the kitchen. Now, this is the key bit. So I start off just putting the mussels on, not worrying too much about the juice. This is one of Emma's plates, by the way. Right, now I'm pouring the sauce over it. Now, do you want to know how to pimp your food? That last bit of magic is this. It's called texture. I call it texturing. So you've got a dish and it's finished. How can you make it, lift it, even make it amazing? If you like this, you put little kind of bombs of lime juice on it and a tiny bit of salt, so that when people eat it, they get these little kind of explosions of salt and acid. And the last thing is just a little bit of this olive oil, because look at one, it's delicious, which is the main reason, but also it leaves these lovely little kind of
more fat.
Yes. So add more fat. Yeah, you see, you don't need to worry about fat. It's all those burgers.
It's true, actually. That's where they have the hidden fats and salts. It's when you do it yourself.
Yes, that's right. So there we go. That is Brill with a mussel tartar. Do it right from over. I think, sorry, we're trying to get the lighting.
It looks fantastic. Yeah, everybody could do this.
It looks great in the room, but not so necessarily great on the. Hang on, I'm just going to take a photo and I'll put it up on Instagram.
Oh, you're all organised, and you're cooking in your socks, Stephen. You know that's very bad.
Never I'm relaxed around my millionaire row, Thomas or whatever it's called. So that's it.
It is easy. I think anybody could do that. But you see what's important? It's the details. It's the fact, it's the seasoning. It's the not being scared to use fat. And then at the end, what you call those little flavor bombs. I'm interested in why you used lime rather than lemon there.
I just love lime. Can
you honestly tell the difference if someone gave one to you?
Yeah. Oh, lime is kind of fragrant. It's slightly musky. Look at that. I cut a lime in half the other day, months ago, and I just stood and looked at it and smelt it. It's the most glorious smell. It's got something over lemon. Do
you think it's sharper? I always think it's like a lot of sense, but it's got a greener kind of flavour than lemon has.
Yeah, but it is, in theory, it's higher acid than a lemon, just. Yeah, I know. I found that strange. I thought lime wasn't. I think it's a little bit softer than lime in a certain way, but I just love it. Should I try
I'm going to I'll try it with lime.
Yeah. I just love lime.
So if you were cooking at home tonight for your wife, Emma, and for your son, you wouldn't do this kind of dish though, would you?
Yeah.
What would you do?
No. Well, I've got Marina coming around for dinner next week, and I'm going to cook her. That's Marina. I'm going to cook her Vinci.
That is one of my favourite dishes. That's kind of like, I'll just run this up at the weekend dish, though, is it, Stephen? That's quite a lot of work.
No, but I can get truffles. I can get seps. Sarah, will you come and try this? Is that right? I want someone to come
and not have anybody respond to it. Sarah, come in.
It's like the Galloping Gourmet. Do you remember?
Sarah has been your friend since primary school, hasn't she?
Well, this is Sarah, who I met on my first day of primary school. Can you imagine? So 1968. I realised that at the time the Beatles hadn't even started recording the White Album.
Here we go.
So there you go.
Okay, Sarah, as good as it looks.
It's absolutely delicious. I can taste the little flavour bomb. I'm going to try the cabbage now.
And it's a plate full of the seaside, really, isn't it? I always think that about mussels. There's nothing else like mussels for making you feel you're right there.
Exactly. Yes.
And I think it
always needs all the butter.
Oh yeah. I think I left the butter out of the recipe when I did it with lemon salt. So anyone.
And a whole lot of butter in. Someone has asked actually. They want to cook this, but they want to do it with samphire instead of cabbage. Would that be a good idea?
Yeah, it'd be lovely. It would be gorgeous. I would put the.
Because samphire is quite salty as well.
Oh my!
Oh.
Can you see me?
I can see you went kind of like you froze for a moment, but you're back now.
Yeah, and that's Rob in the background.
Why would you do the samphire?
Well, I think it'd be gorgeous with samphire. It'd probably be better. The only thing I would say, again, watch the saltiness, and I would put the samphire on top of the fish because it's so lovely looking. But that's, you know, that's a visual cosmetic thing. Actually, it would, as you say, add to it being a real plate of kind of the seaside, you know. But yeah, I mean, I should give credit where it's due. When we opened the Sportsman, around that time, Paul Heathcote did a book, Rhubarb and Black Pudding.
He was in Lancashire, wasn't he?
Was
he there? Yeah.
That's
I have that book still.
Ribble Valley. And yes, me too. And I loved it. And it was a big influence on us because it was all about, you know, the suppliers and the food reflecting that Lancashire
and that
Valley.
Was a new idea at that time in Britain anyway. People didn't make a big fuss about that before.
No, it was kind of the first mention possibly of the word
in the UK
in an English context, which I banged on about because, you know, it you know, Kent has a terroir. You know, we have a coast, we have a climate. I mean, everywhere has its geography, but a climate, a coast, and all that kind of stuff, and it makes it gives the food a particular character, you know. So we've got a lot of sea, we got oysters, we got mussels, shellfish, all that kind of stuff, and so you end up and we obviously got all the soft fruit. We've got, you know, strawberries, raspberries, cherries, plums, apples, pears, all grow within a mile.
Someone who wasn't logged on when you were cooking the cabbage, how did you do it? Did you blanch it and then cook it in butter?
I just cooked. I got a pan, put the cabbage, put a little bit of hot water, probably 1 centimetre deep, brought it up to the boil, chucked in shredded cabbage, cooked it until the water had almost evaporated, and then I added a good whack of butter, lemon, and black pepper. And still, when it still had bite.
You were talking about Kent and what you have around there. When I've talked to you in the past, you have said to me that you cook looking towards Belgium and northern France, not towards the north, further north of you. Do you still feel like that?
Yeah, I don't feel connected to the rest of England. Britain. I'm sorry if that offends anyone. I feel that's why I used to go to France every 2 weeks on buying trips to buy goose fat and grey salt and all the kind of things that the French, you know, I feel very much part of France, you know, but I think us in Kent always have done.
Disconnected?
You know,
or connected to France?
No, I just think that we're so close to France, and everybody who's just been to France has to come through Kent, or, you know, pretty much. You just feel connected to. I feel connected to, you know, the whole way of life, and I don't feel that connected to, say, Derbyshire, you know. And it came up when I was doing cheeses, because I always naturally use French cheeses, and people say, "Oh, I thought you were kind of very pro-English ingredients." It's like, no, I'm not. I'm pro the idea of a terroir, but you know, at the time, this was a while ago, French cheeses were the best. I mean, I now think English.
I know, it's fantastic. But you're still very much in the techniques you used, very much attached to in the techniques that you apply to your food and the way you cook. You're still very attached to French cooking. What I feel these days is, you know, people a lot younger than us, actually, kind of like people in their 30s, for example. France does not have that kind of hold on them. I think you have to be sort of over 50, basically.
Well, they've
exactly, it's Southeast
and Vietnam. And if you've had food that good, which Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese, all those areas, when food's that good, it's going to be a dominant influence. And that's one of the key differences with our generation. I went interrailing. So, you know, when I went interrailing when I was 18, I got to go around France and Italy and Spain. And so you absorb their culture. And now I go on holiday. I still do, if I get the chance to.
But do you worry about that as a chef? Do you think, oh, I'm going to get behind? Because these are not the influences that are current.
No, it's I don't mind it. It's fantastic. You want to see what people like. Is it that Gareth? I can't remember his name. Gareth Ward at Yinshire Hall or something. You know, he's doing. I'm looking at what he's doing. I haven't managed to get there because of the bleeding lockdown. But you know, he's using Japanese and Chinese influences in his food, but he's serving them within a tasting menu format. And Tom Kemble at the Pass, who used to be at Bonham's, he's really into his Japanese things. And no, I'm all for it. It's a melting pot. Let everything, you know, I might bulk a bit at the old style, you know, balsamic vinegar with miso.
No,
I
still find it hard even to see them on a page in the same recipe. But I think it's a kind of limitation of mine.
But in the hands of a really great cook, it could be mind-blowing. So no, I love French food. I love French food culture. I love reading all the old books. I love going to France. I love everything about it. But I don't think it should be literally preserved in aspic. It should be, you know, it's a dynamic, movable thing. And French chefs, I mean, going back to the Toigros brothers, who I wrote about recently, the Toigros always the Toigros always had a Japanese. They were the first to go to Japan, and they started bringing back these, you know, seaweed and things like that, because the Japanese understood umami, and we didn't in the West. We didn't, and then once people began to understand umami, like someone like Heston Blumenthal.
Do you personally feel under pressure to keep up, though? Are you worried it'll come the day when people who are booking dinner or lunch or whatever might say, we're not going to Sportsman, it's all that old-fashioned French stuff, you know?
Yeah, I do, but I don't. It isn't. That's the thing. You see, I do use just silly little things, like using limes rather than lemons. I mean, it might not sound much, but it's a little twist. No, I do think about that. I do think, one day I'm going to be, the old man who, but there are good chefs who don't. You know, Michel Gerard is still cooking up a storm.
I read about him just recently.
I went there, and it's just stunning. And this was the man who invented cuisine minceur, and was one of the Nouvelle Cuisine Brigade, and his food is still fantastic. They don't understand tasting menus, though. They understand a la carte. If you eat in a posh French restaurant, generally the rule is eat a la carte, not tasting menu, because they don't understand tasting menus. They don't see them as a narrative. They see them as just a series of dishes that are just mini.
How do you think about your tasting menus when you put them together? Does that take?
Well, there is a narrative to them. I mean, even if my son Stan, who's only 7, precocious little git, he came back and said, "Narrative's just a posh word for story, Dad." And so the story behind them is the story of the area. I mean, it's so obvious, you know. In fact, some people have said when they get the train down to the Sportsman and they get off at Faversham, they go through all the hop fields, the cherries, the apples, then pass all the strawberry fields, the raspberries, and they arrive at the Sportsman, and it's by the sea, and there's all the oysters and the smell of the seaweed, and then there's the game birds flying over. I mean, it's the menu writes itself, but you've got to be sensitive to it.
Do you do that thing as well, which I've read some Michelin chefs do, which is there are echoes within the menu?
Yeah. Yes, well, I think that's it's like, I mean, you can get pretentious and sound pretentious when you say there's symphonies.
It's a terrible word.
I always love Beethoven symphonies. Yes, but I agree. It's like that's where the French go wrong. But think of a symphony. Think of a Beethoven symphony, and the way that a theme, and you hear a theme, and you think, I know that tune, and little things like that. And for example, I was having a great meal a year ago or two at Simon Rogan's Roganic in Marrowbone. And it was a lovely meal, and Simon was there, and I congratulated him because it was stunning. However, there was one thing I took issue with, which was that with my main course meat came a pate made from the same animal. And what I didn't understand, I think he missed a trick. It was like, you should have served that at the beginning of the meal when I want a pate, and then say, oh, and the rest of the animal will be coming later. Or, you could serve the liver of it or whatever, In other words, you could run a theme through the tasting menu, which I think is more effective than, what I felt a bit like, well, I don't really want a pate with my main course. And that was the only thing. I mean, it was a brilliant meal. But so I think there are opportunities there. But of course, as soon as you start talking about it.
Someone has asked a very unpretentious question, actually. What's for pudding?
Good. Good point. I didn't do one. I've got some chocolate brownies that Sarah.
Would that work, though? Would that work?
Because Yeah, always. I don't see any connection between dinner and pudding, as in my main course and my pudding. I would have anything off. As long as they're both good, I really don't mind.
Oh.
Yeah. You see, I know you're.
I love menus, and I really rest. I mean, that's one of my favourite things to do. But I really think, very rarely chocolate. It quite often will be fruit. And I think about, you do as well. The texture is important. My kids are as pretentious as yours. Sometimes I will give them things and they will say, what about, this is too much. This is all far too soft. What about the texture, Mum? What about the texture? See, these children get brought up badly. These children get brought up with
Good. Well, they're right. I mean, I think I probably do on a subconscious level think about it, but I normally just think of seasons. Seasons is my thing. I don't cook anything that isn't at its peak, and I don't mean winter, spring, summer, autumn. I mean, the 4 weeks when the 4 weeks when elderflowers are in season. I'll serve elderflower fritters with elderflower posset, and whatever the main course is, really.
Well, you say that you were still learning all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, God, definitely. And the Telegraph, having to kind of branch out with the writing in the Telegraph has been brilliant. Because you see, I've been a chef for 20 years when I started writing for the Telegraph. And up till then, I was just eating and cooking restaurant food. I was barely house trained. And so the idea of eating, of just making anything like a toasted sandwich or a I don't know, roast piece of beef, because when I first met Emma, she felt so sorry for
wife Emma.
She came to work in sports. Yeah, my partner Emma. She made me roast chicken, and because I hadn't had like a sit down roast chicken dinner, because I was working at the pub, I was single, and I was throwing everything into it, and so I hadn't had a proper sit down dinner.
She made you a
probably
Sunday
about
roast.
3 years.
That was a thing she could have done for you, probably.
And that was.
That's made with her.
And it was roast chicken. My roast, and it was roast chicken, my favourite. So, but she was the only person who kind of, I think, that was really nice, because she kind of thought, oh, he must miss like having a proper sit down, blah blah.
So the stuff that you do from the Telegraph, is it not so different though that it can't possibly feed into what you do at the Sportsman? It does.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, I try. That's the other thing. If I do, like, I've got coming up in a couple of weeks, I've got my perfect apple pie, and when I write about it, it's a personal thing. You can't tell me what my perfect apple pie is, just like I can't tell you. So what I've done, it's a very personal thing, but I've put it on the menu so that Telegraph readers, because I know quite a lot of them come, I chat to them, less now because of restrictions, but I chat to them, and I like the idea that they've read an article and the dish is on the menu. So I try and...
I'm looking forward to seeing that. Now, I think we probably have to wind up now. Thank you for joining us today, and thanks, Stephen. That was just a great way to end the day, I think. And everybody have a lovely evening. I hope quite a lot of you have got some Brill to eat, though it'll be a bit cooler now. And I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Have a good evening.